relatively slowly. And after the first fly, I'll let you ask questions. And then we'll go on with the second. And then we'll let Dennis do his. So we're making a little extra time for, so I'll only do beach pattern once, and that'll give Dennis a chance to have a go.
Sounds good.
Great.
So let me know when you want me to mute everybody, so we force the screen to you, Dave. We got another minute here just in case anybody's joining, I guess.
Yeah. We'll wait till just a little after 10, I guess, and then we'll have a go.
Okay.
I really like the picture behind you, John. That's good.
Yeah, it was yesterday's walk down towards Swymont Lagoon.
Nice.
By the way, while we're talking about showing flies, here's what I think is Denney Rickard's most successful fly, which is called a seal bugger. And how it's different is that he's lengthened the tail a bit. You can see it's a very long tail. And he's used seal fur for the body, for the dubbing, and picked it out. And he's also got a kind of a maroon palmered hackle. And I have been really successful in Elk Lake with that fly. I mean, I could go out there and fish for about 3 hours. Well, that's not recently, but fish for 3 hours and come back with 3 or 4 trout that are, 3 pounds or 4 pounds even. And fishing this down on a sinking line, down at about 17 feet down, right where the channel shallows up. So in the main lake there, it's about 30 feet, and in a very short distance, it shallows up to about 17 feet. And if you're just pulling this fly along that interface, you catch trout.
How fast are you going?
Very slow.
Okay.
I don't fish with a motor at all. I just row. So.
Which lake was that again?
Elk Lake.
Mike, just take a picture of it and post it.
Well, see this book?
Yep.
That's Denney Rickard's book, and he's got only 6 flies that he uses basically, and the seal bugger is one, and the one that Dave's going to tie today is what's it called again, Dave? Oh, an AP emerger, all-purpose emerger. That one there.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of his 6, and the seal bugger is another one of his 6. And I've got a million flies because I've been tying them all my life, but those 6, they really
I see
work.
your million and raise you 1,000,001.
If you Google Rickard's seal bugger on Google, you'll get a number of hits with people tying that fly, showing how to tie it.
Yeah, you can actually get him tying it too, which I think is the best one. Because he talks about the method of presentation too, which is the second secret, is how you present it.
So he's got a whole hardcover book and he's got 5 flies in there. Yeah?
No. He's got lots of flies, but he does say these are the 6 that he uses.
Okay.
So I guess anytime we're ready.
Okay, I'm going to mute everybody and please switch to speaker view.
Okay.
And Dave, I'm just, Dave, I'm just going to unmute you. Okay, Dave, you should be good.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so this is the first one. It's the Knouff Lake Special. The hook is a size, and I'm tying these a little bit larger. I'm tying a size 10, so it's a little easier to see what's going on. This is a medium wire nymph hook. This particular one is a Hannock 230 BL, barbless. I'm using tan thread because it is kind of a tannish colored fly. We just start at the front and attach the thread, and then run it down the hook shank. Right to the bend. And the tail is this stuff. This is golden pheasant crest. And you'll notice that as you get towards this end of the pheasant crest, the black stripes get further apart than they are down at this part, down here. So I tend to pick the ones down at the bottom so that I get a little more definition and less space between the black bars. Take a little piece off here. I'm going to measure it shank length, and that's the straight part of the hook. I'm going to place that on where the thread is at the bend, pinch wrap it on, and then tie the rest of that down onto the hook shank. So there's your tail. Everybody see that? And then next order of business is the body. And the body is going to be peacock curl. And I've got a couple of strands here. Actually, I'm going to add one. Make this a little easier to see. Take it out of my package. And then line the tips up a bit. And I trim them off with just a little bit sticking out. And I've got my thread up here, which is about what you normally call the wing position, which is about 2 or 3 eye widths behind the eye. And I'm just going to wrap over the ends of the peacock. Oh, there's another little tip that I think I've mentioned before. When you're making a loop, if your loop falls the wrong way, the way to fix that is to spin your bobbin counterclockwise, and then the loop will fold the other way. Makes it a little easier to do that wrap in, that loose wrap. And I'm going to wrap that down. And all I'm doing here is, by starting the peacock curl up near the front, I'm trying to avoid a big bump at the back of the fly. And then we're going to wrap the peacock curl around the thread multiple times. Whoops, actually I've missed a step here. Let me unwrap that. It's early morning and I don't drink coffee, so I'm not entirely awake yet. Let me unwrap that because I forgot the rib. And the rib is fine copper wire. I have a lifetime supply of this stuff because some guy who was taking apart some small electric motors gave me a whole whack of fine copper wire. Okay, so now I'm going to put the wire in past where the peacock curl is. And again, I'm going to wrap this right to the back where it connects the, right where the tail of the fly is bound down. I lost one of my peacocks. So I'll have to tie him into salvage time. Okay, now that I've got the peacock in with the wire down, now I can wrap the peacock around the thread. And what this does, because it's a furl body, the thread reinforces the peacock herl so that if you have a fish that nips the peacock herl with a tooth, it doesn't come unraveled on you. And then I'm just gonna wrap that up to the front of the fly. I'm using my rotary vise. I was watching Gary Hankey do this with his Finnor vise the other day, and he just spins it with one finger and it goes and winds right up. Taut down. And then trim the excess. And then I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to wrap it the opposite direction through the peacock herl. So, and I'm just going to do 3 or 4 wraps. Get up there to the front. A couple of wraps in front, pull it back. A couple of wraps in the back. And then I'm going to get in here and trim the wire off as close as I can get, using the base of the scissors so that it doesn't ruin the points. And then the next thing is the legs, which are partridge. And you need to find the right partridge feather. So I have this bag of stuff that I think I got many years ago when my brother shot a partridge with a bow and arrow. And we got plucked all the feathers off of it. And so what you want is you want the barbules to be a little less than shank length. Otherwise they get too long. And then I'm going to strip all of the fuzz off the end here, or most of it. There we go. Then I'm going to tie this in by the tip. And so you can see I've got, to create the tie-in spot, I'm going to stroke the feathers back. And you can see that, I've got about a shank length worth of feathers that are back. And I'm going to see how it's curved. You can see it's curved up like that. I'm going to tie it on so the curve is facing away from me. And because I want the thing to be sparse, I'm going to take all of the fibers off the far side of the feather. Come on there. So this is a little tricky. So I take just the part just off the far side of the feather. If you don't do that, the barbules are going to stick out in odd ways. It's not quite done there. So you see now I've got half a feather. And I'm going to tie it on so that the curve is facing away from me, right where the front of the peacock herl is, right where that little tip ends. I'm going to wrap in there pretty good. Bring the tip up and a couple of wraps in front to lock that feather in. And I'm going to come in here and trim off the tip, hoping not to catch the stem. And then with my hackle pliers, I'm going to grab the butt end of the feather and move my thread forward just a hair. And then I'm going to wrap this feather around with that. And I'm going to kind of stroke those legs back a little bit on each wrap. And I should get maybe 3, maybe 4 wraps. That's good. Then I hold up the stem and wrap in there. Pull it back, wrap in front. And then I'm going to come in and trim that off on top of the hook. Now I can stroke those legs back a little bit and do a few thread wraps at the front. So those are the legs. And then we're going to put a little wing over the top. And for that, I'm using a pheasant rump feather. And you can see again, there's the pheasant rump. And I've chosen the ones that have relatively short barbs. So that's down near the front of the neck, not at the back, or front of the rump. Again, I'm gonna pull all this fluff out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. And what I want to do is I'm just gonna put these feathers down over top like that as a wing. And to get enough of them, I'm gonna strip all of the barbs off one side, turn the feather over, lay them over top of the ones I just stripped off, and stripped all the barbs off the other side. And now I'm going to grab the butt ends of those. So it's just the barbs of the pheasant rump that I've got. You can see that little bit there. I'm going to lay that down on the hook, just back to the end of the shank, basically, and wrap down the overwing, lift up the front a bit, get that down, and then trim some of the excess out of here. And then wrap it down and build a little bit of a head here. So there we go, not too big of a head. And then I'm going to tie a whip finish. I got fumble fingers today. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you guys were asking about head cement last week. On this type of fly, I will use a little bit of head cement because those fibers are bound down okay, but not really hard. So I'm gonna just put a little drop of head cement on there. Then another little trick that I learned is if I take a little stub of remaining pheasant rump where the quill is fairly thin, and I take the thin quill and stick it down through the eye of the hook, and then pull it through. It pulls all of the glue out of the eye, just like that. Now you don't have a glued up eye that you have to worry about when you get on stream. So there you go.
Nice job.
And if you want it to stand out a little more, you can give it a little roughness with your Velcro thingy. There you go.
Can I ask a question, Dave?
Sure.
Do you think that fly might imitate the traveling sedge?
You could do that. I think I would use a lighter wire hook for that so that you can get it on the surface, right?
Right.
Usually the traveling sedges that I've seen tied before and that I've used have got a elk hair or a deer hair wing.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them sit on the surface.
If I might comment, I got this fly up at Knouff Lake Resort, and I used it on Community Lake last spring. There was a hatch of cinnamon traveler sedges just before the main big traveler sedge. And Sandy and I were fishing for a couple of days, and that fly was the one that I found most successful because it was imitating the emerging cinnamon caddis.
Yeah, not the skater, but the emerger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, you know, it's funny. People, I don't think, in general, fly fishermen don't pay enough attention to emerger patterns. I know if, you know, on the Alberta lakes, when you see a mayfly hatch, guys are out there throwing throwing mayflies, like the standard Catskill mayfly that sits high on the water, and the fish just ignore it. That's why most of the mayflies I tie now are a clinkhammer style, an emerger style pattern where they're in the surface film. Because I think the fish are looking for the cripples, because the cripples can't get away. Whereas the adults, they pop up the surface and they're gone.
Yeah, you know, I've captured traveling sedges, a number of them, and I've really studied them. And I noticed that they have a very green tinge to their abdomen, which a lot of others don't. And this one that with the pheasant pearl body might be imitating that.
Yeah, the peacock curl, yeah, should be.
Or sorry, peacock, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why this tail works, is that's the trailing shuck of the nymph that's coming up.
Yeah.
As it's breaking out. Okay. Any other questions? Must have done a good description. You guys are quiet. Okay, we'll go to the next one. This is, oh, poop, dropped my hook. It didn't go on the floor, so it's in my wastebasket. I'll get another one.
Sorry, so everybody is muted now except for David, so he can teach the next one.
Okay.
Show us the next one.
So the hook here is a TMCO 200R.
Dave, we can't
It's a
see.
ring eye hook.
Dave, we can't
Yep.
see your hook.
I gotta go. I gotta go to speaker view here. Just a minute.
Oh, good, thanks.
There we go. So this is a TMCO 200R. R means it's a ring eye, and then it's got a little bit of a curve to it. It's not a straightforward hook, straight hook. And I kind of like, for wet flies that have any length to them, I kind of like the ring eye hook, because if you tie a non-slip loop, I think they behave better when you're stripping them in. So once again, a tan thread attached behind the eye, and then we'll run the thread down the shank. Longer shank, so it takes wire. And I'm gonna stop it just a little bit past the point. Not too far back. Now the tail on this guy, in the actual pattern, it was wood duck. I don't have any wood duck. So I'm gonna substitute mallard flank. And for mallard flank, I'm gonna make a tail of a bunch of barbules off the side of a mallard flank. And I'm gonna measure those so that they're just slightly less than basically from the eye to the point of the hook in terms of length. I'm not going to make it too long this time. Set it on the hook. Wrap it down. And again, these fibers are supposed to represent the trailing shuck, and I've bound them down all the way up the hook to give it some bulk. And once again, a piece of fine copper wire for a rib. I think it was one of my university buddies when we were in 4th year that managed to pick himself up a whole bunch of little motors from these little electric race cars that you rent around on a track, and he stripped all the wire off them. And I ended up with a lifetime supply of this thing. So now I take my wire and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start up the shank, wrap it on, try and get it on the far side of the hook as I'm wrapping the wire on, so that when I start the counter wrap, it starts off on the far side. So far, so good. Now comes the tedious part, because I'm using a rusty colored dubbing. Now, in the pattern it says hare's ear, but I'm going to use muskrat. I happen to have a little package of nice little muskrat dubbing, and I'm going to put a very small amount on. You can probably see that's just hardly covers the thread, because I don't want the body to be too bulky. Wrap up there, and you can see I'm not making a huge fat body. This again is the abdomen of the emerger. That's kind of the part that's left as this will be the actual shuck at the end of the day when the thing hatches. So it's not going to be too thick, because the body of the insect has already started to vacate the shuck. And I'm going to take this up, because it's a fairly long hook. I'm going to take this up probably between 1/2 and 2/3 of the length of the shank. And be careful not to use too much dubbing when you put it on. And you can see now I've left a good, call it 1/4 inch almost from the front, clear yet, because that's where the actual thorax of the emerger is going to be. I'm going to rib this counter wrapped with the wire. That gives that segmentation of the natural insect again. You watch Phil Rowley, and the guy, he gets the wire off by doing this to break it, but I can never get it to break. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, he had used wood duck again, and the darker portion of wood duck, but I don't have wood duck. So I'm going to use this guy here, which again is a dyed mallard flank. It's a dark brown one, because I'm going to have a brown wing case, and I'm going to strip off almost the entire side of this relatively long feather. Turn that into a nice bunch, and I'm going to tie it down on the hook right at the start of the body there. You don't need to cut it. So far, so good. And then we get our peacock curl again for the thorax. get a few strands. This time I'm going to tie it in by the butt end of the peacock because it's a little stronger, and I don't need to worry about fish getting its teeth caught in this, so I'm not going to bother wrapping the thread around it. I'm just going to put it on there and give her a few solid wraps. I'm going to bring my thread forward till it's a good eye, just one eye width back of the eye. Then I'm going to wrap my peacock herl around to make a thorax, reasonably bulky, probably about twice the diameter of the body there. Then I'm going to tie that off. Trim them off at the top. Again, for these beginners, I always say, if you cut your material off on the top with your bobbin hanging below, slide your scissors down to the top of the hook shank to trim them. You're never going to cut your thread and have it end up on the floor. Then you take your wing case and you pull that over top of the thorax. A couple or three wraps over behind. A couple of wraps in front. And again, I'm trying to leave a little space because I still need to put the legs on. And once again, we're going to go with a, let's see here, if I can get a good one. Having to paw through all of my partridge to get one that's decent. No, I want the shank, again, shank length arrangement there. And I'm going to strip the fuzz out of the way so I can see what I'm working with. Once again, and I'm going to have the curve facing away from me. So I want to take off the stuff that's on the right-hand side. I'm going to come in here and pull those barbules off. Just make sure that there's enough there left. And then I'm going to just gently stroke the other side back. And I'm going to tie it in with the curve facing away from me. And tie it down right there where the tip sticks out the front. And turn the tip off. Apple pliers. Grab the stem here and wrap them around. This one I kind of got backwards. It's okay. So I have to stroke those fibers to the back. Come on, go back. I got it backwards. I can fix that. And here I turn the tip off. And this time I'm going to pull them all back and have them force them back with the thread a bit. So I stripped the wrong side of that hackle. That's why they're facing the wrong darn way. But if I force them back, it'll be fine. There you go. That's a little more rough and ready version, I'll tell you. It doesn't matter a whole lot. I mean, it looks better, but I think if you're stripping it, it doesn't hurt to have these fibers go the wrong way because they tend to be a little more active. And we'll just rough everything out a little. And again, a little head cement on there. I need to get new head cement. And that's him. So there you go. Questions, comments, complaints?
Oh.
I think it's nice to see you put the feather on backwards, because I did that many times and had to use the thread to force it back into place.
Yeah, that's one of the things you learn if you've been tying long enough, is what we call salvage skills.
Yeah, right. Did a lot of that.
You have to be able to salvage the fly partway through. I didn't realize until I made the first wrap that I'd got the darn thing backwards. There you go. But it's a serviceable fly. Not as purty as the other one.
It'll catch fish for sure.
That's what we hope. Yeah, I'm not putting them in a shadow box. Not that one anyway.
Gentlemen, I want to ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Ask away.
I noticed that both of you were using ceramic bobbins. Mine are still the old steel bobbins. You find these are better, the ceramic bobbins?
If you tie a lot, the steel ones that just have a steel tip, the little inexpensive ones, the tip tends to wear, and then it'll cut your thread on you when you're least expecting.
I've been having that problem.
So you can there's two types of bobbin you can get that avoid that. One is a steel tube, but it's got a little a ceramic or glass tip with a hole in it, and those are nice. They don't, the ceramic tip doesn't wear. The other one have an actual ceramic tube, which is what these are. And this particular bobbin they're not cheap, but I really like them. This is the Rite bobbin, R-I-T-E, and this little thingy here is actually, you can adjust the tension of the bobbin by clicking this thing one direction or the other, and it makes it really good to set consistent tension in the bobbin. This one's a little heavy.
So I've got both types, and the problem with the one with the ceramic little tip in the side of a steel tube is when you try to put the thread through from the back side, it'll get stuck there. So I have to use a thread
you need a threader
tool to get So I can't just suck it through; it gets stuck.
So the ceramic tube is really nice. And why I really like these Rite bobbins is I actually met the guy that invented them at the Calgary Fly Fishing Show one year, and he had a whole bunch of there to demonstrate. And he had one that had 16-aught thread. Now this is like spider thread. And he had it wrapped around a hook, and he says, I've adjusted the tension so that you can't break that thread. So he says, grab the bobbin and pull. And I did like that, and the thread didn't break. And he says, that's the beauty of the adjustable tension, is you can set it at the breaking point almost of the thread without the thread breaking. And I just find them very comfortable to use. So I've got a whole raft of them, but they're not cheap. I noticed in Robinson's that they have a similar knockoff type version that's a little less expensive than the Rite one.
So I think I bought my Rite one from, I'm not sure, I thought it was Robinson's, but maybe not, the store in town.
Yeah, they have them.
But they had 3 different models, if I remember, like a big and a short and a medium or something like that.
Yeah. And they have one called a half-inch one that has a whole bunch of, it's a longer string here, and instead of this brown part, it's got a whole bunch of little rubber grommets. And I guess the idea is that you can wrap the thread around something and then latch it in those things to make half inches. I never bothered with that. I can tie a half inch pretty quick with my fingers. So Dennis, looks like you're on.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Another great show.
So I am going to mute everybody again so that it forces the screen to Dennis, okay? Hold on 1 minute, please. Okay, Dennis, just you've been unmuted, so screen should just default to you.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. How's that look right now? Just testing. Okay. All right.
Yeah, looks great.
What I have here is a fly I use for pink salmon. It's my go-to fly, and actually was invented by my youngest son Darcy, so I call it the Darcy Special. Now, I don't necessarily want to show you how to tie flies, except I just want to demonstrate the techniques I use, starting with my disclaimers of this works for me, it may not work for you. So what I start with is a stainless steel hook. Everybody see that okay? And
Yep, we can see it great. Thank you.
okay, I end up bending it. And the idea is to make it have a round shape to it so that it sort of simulates a shrimp. I used 2 pair of pliers, and I give it 1 bend, move the pliers down further, give it another bend, move the pliers down a bit more and give it another bend, so that what I have is that sort of thing. Now, years ago up at Kluxui, there were 2 guys up there. They were really, really good fishermen, and everybody tried to copy them and try to use their flies. And for 15 years, they kept this a secret. So one day, one of the guys invited me to his campsite, and he showed me his secret to the fly. And I didn't know why so much later, but anyway, here his secret to this particular fly is that I use 0.035 lead. And I take a pair of, first of all, I start with let me get my other glasses on here. Start with about 7 wraps just to get it started. What I do is I take flat pliers and I pinch the end of the wrap, the wire, lead. So I've got this sort of thing. And then I curve the lead so it fits on top. And where that lead is pinched, I'll start tying. And as I tie and tighten, it saddles over top of the hook. Like so. And then just crudely, I'll continue wrapping towards the back and about halfway back. And then with my thumbnail, I'll make a dent in the lead. That's where I'm going to cut it. And I'll cut it there. At the other end, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to crimp that lead so it's flat. So that when I continue wrapping, I spin my bobbin for 2 reasons. One, for it gives it a big color, but most of all, it gives it strength. So as I wrap that, the lead's going to, again, saddle over top of the hook. Now, this doesn't have to be very neat. And then I'll just run the thread to the front and give it a couple of half hitches. Now this looks really crude and unorganized, but that's where I'll stop for now. Now I've got something that looks really messy and crude and wavy and whatnot, but now I'm going to straighten it all out. I'm going to turn this towards me a little bit, and with my flat pliers, I'm going to pinch all along the top. That just gave me a very neat, flat surface. What this does, number one, it increases the hump. And number two, when it's going through the water, and this is the secret to his fishing, I've seen him catch 18 pinks on the first cast in a row. What this does, it makes the fly sit this way in the water, and when you retrieve it, it gives it this kind of an action. Whereas before, without this lead, it would just spin around and just didn't look like anything. But this is a secret to that lead and the hump, is the movement through the water like this. When I tie these flies, I tie about half a dozen at a time. So at this point in time, what I'll do is I'll saturate this fly with head cement. And just let it set for just came undone. Set for a while. The idea is that I'm not doing very well here. The idea of letting it set is that it will harden, soak into the lead, and set it up. Let it set in the in its position, so that when the fish starts chewing on it, it's not going to fall apart on you. Now, what I'll do is I'll take this, set it aside, and I've got another one here I did earlier. Head cement's already solid in it, already set. So I'll flatten. My next stage will be tying on some chenille, pink. Again, UV reflective. I'm turning on my UV light on and off. That's what the fish see. And I'll get my thread going again. Sorry about this. And I'll just tie on to the back. Then I'll take my chenille and I'll strip off a bit of the end, just exposing the thread. And I'll tie that on, and I'll come right down really low on the hook, really low. at this point, for strength, I'm going to saturate this hook again. Then I'm going to wrap my line forward. Give it a couple of half hitches just to hold it in place so it doesn't fall apart on me while I'm moving. Then I'll take my chenille, starting really low, work my way all the way up to the front. And then tie it off. When I cut it, I'll pick out the little excess. And I'll tie back, a couple of eyes lengths back. My next stage will be the thing, I don't know what they call it in the back of a shrimp, the vein or the thing. And I'm just using green Flashaboo. Take it and I'll tie it in, pulling back so it doesn't, I don't have to do any trimming. And I'll just build a head. Now what I'll do is I'll face this back of it towards me so I can see it's overlaying on the back. And as I'm tying it back, I'm spreading the chenille out. And I'll take one loop, 2 loops, 3 loops, 4 loops, right down to the hook. And I'll make 3 or 4 loops. And this is where I whip finish it. So the back of the hook. Turn it off. And because I want the tail to stick out, I'll bend it up a bit. Cut it off right about there. Now I'll look at it and I can adjust that back a little bit. You can see the back. I like to have that flat so it looks as thick as possible. Then I'll take my head cement. Not only do the head really well, but I'll also work right across the back, giving that extra strength. It ties in the thread, gives it extra strength. Then at the back where I did the whip finish, I'll also do around there head cement. These flies take a lot of beating, and all this extra head cement gives it that extra strength. Well, there you have it.
Dennis, a question for you.
What's that?
Do you ever use that in a river?
Well, that's another point I wanted to bring up. I have, but not like this. I've got some backing. And if you turn my UV light on, you see what happens. It just glows. So what I'll do is I'll take a couple of strands, one green and one orange. I got here, cut off about a hook's length of each. I'll tie that on just as wings. One orange, one UV. And I'll just tie that on there.
Sorry, Dennis, this is an option now you're talking about?
Yeah, this is an option. And what I do is I'll just tie that on there, big head. I'm just doing this really rough right now, just for a demonstration purpose.
All right, I missed it. What are you tying on again?
It's backing that you use for your fishing reel,
Yeah, right.
but it's UV reflective. And I'll just tie out about that much of it. But I will take my needle and just open it up, flare it out in the ends. Now, if you use this trick with the UV on the Souk River, I don't know why, you can do it with any fly you want. That you can see.
So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
My first question is, you take a lot of time to preserve the fly with your head cement. What happens when, where is that fly actually hooked into the fish's mouth? And how do you keep your leader from being worn out when you catch a series of fish on the same fly?
As far as hooking the fish where in the mouth, it could be anywhere.
Okay.
But it's always, it's always on the lips. He never swallows it.
Okay.
One of the things I do, and this is just me, is that when I sharpen a hook, and all these hooks have to be sharpened. And when I sharpen a hook, I sharpen it so the end of it looks like a chisel. It's not a sharp, but a chisel, so that when the fish bites, it bites into it. It doesn't cut out of the fish. This is just me. This is just the way I think about hooking a fish, because when you test on your fingernail, you don't want it to slip off your fingernail. It could be sharp, but still slide off your fingernail because it's sharp, but it's cutting. I don't want it to cut through the fish and come out of the fish. I want it to dig into the fish. So I cut the edge at an angle, like a chisel. Do you understand what I mean? Again, my disclaimer, these are the things I do, the way I think about it.
But your leader, when you're fishing, it doesn't wear out with a series of fish?
Well, the tippet, you should check it every once in a while, but no, the tippets usually last for quite a while.
I check after every fish I catch. I always check the leader down close to the hook to see if there's any nicks in it, because I've lost some good fish because I didn't do that, and it broke the leader off.
Yeah, you just run your thumb and your finger down the line and see
Yeah,
if there's any.
especially with salmon, you should be always checking your leader after every fish.
And after every time you get a tailing loop. Because you might have tied a little knot in there.
That's right, yeah.
Hey,
What
Dennis,
weight tippet are you?
you say you tie that wing on if you're fishing in a river. Isn't the Kluksui the name of the river that comes in there? And have you ever fished in the little river itself?
The Kluksui River? Is
Yeah.
that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Well, that's in Port McNeill, Port Hardy area.
Oh, well, where are you fishing
But
then?
I fished this particular one in the Souk River for chum.
Oh, but have you ever, when you're
fun, if you
when
just
you're
want to
at
have
the Kluksui campsite, have you ever fished in the little Kluksui River that comes in there?
no, because it's closed.
Oh,
It's
okay.
off limits.
Oh, okay, okay.
But these are my flies for Kluksui. And as you can see, I've got a lot of Darcy's, but I've also learned that these streamers work very well in Kluksui as well as the Souk River.
Yeah.
And that I was at Kluksui for 3 weeks last year, caught one fish, and that was a spring, 17-pound spring on one of these streamers. But the problem is they don't come into shore. The coho and the springs came in early last year, but they were after the bait fish, and the bait fish schools would wander way out beyond reach, but every once in a while they would come in close to shore. So fishing 6 or 7 hours a day, standing in water, waiting for the schools to come in, you had maybe 2 or 3 casts at the most to catch a fish. And I hooked into 3 nice spring salmons and lost them because I was fishing for pinks and my tippet was only 9-pound tippet and I should have been using 15-pound. So I'm screaming, anybody got bigger tippet? Anybody got bigger tippet? Running around trying to find someone who had bigger tippet. And finally I hooked one and I made a mistake and he just started screaming out on me, just heading right out for the ocean. And I thought, oh, Jesus, going down, I better tighten my drag. Mistake. But what happened when I tightened the drag is the line bit into the existing line on the reel and embedded itself and broke off. So it's live and learn, right?
Those streamers look an awful lot like the bucktails that we used up at Prince Rupert in August. We dragged
basically what it is, it's every line I've got here, different colors and shapes and whatever, all put together.
Yep.
Mostly greens, golds, and everything you can think of there. And I just make out a bunch and just tie them on.
Yeah. And you use like a UV set or epoxy head?
No, well, here's what I do. This is my belief. What I have is I use a cone head.
Yeah, okay.
And I do that for weight.
Yeah.
But what I also do is behind the cone head, I'll tie some really heavy lead.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I get all this mylar tied on, I create a taper back from the cone back down. Now, the cone head not only adds weight, but it makes the fly aerodynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It travels through the water better than a bead or a pair of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't pick up seaweed when you're bringing it back in.
Yeah.
But as this fly fluctuates through the water like this, it's not only giving a stimulus to the fish to hit it, but it also, this conehead is also reflecting all of this.
Yeah.
And what I do is on this back taper of thread, I put 5 or 6 coats of head cement to make that reflective also. So that's reflecting all this motion as well as the cone head. Again, this is what I think, but I don't know.
Dennis, on your Darcy, sorry.
Yep.
On your Darcy special, what size hook were you using?
I always use a size 4 stainless steel.
Thank you.
Well, Dennis, I might have to tie a couple of those up in case we actually get to go fishing up at Honeyknow this August.
I've caught 4 different species of salmon on this, and it's very effective in the Sioux River also. Very effective.
So the body's mostly just multiple colors of crystal flash.
It's everything I had except, yeah, it's got black, it's got silver, gold, greens.
Have you ever tied it with
Right.
a trailer?
No, I've never found it necessary if they're going to hit it. And again, if you're in a school of pinks using this fly, it'll pick out the biggest fish in the school. So anyway, that's it just seems that way to me.
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
thanks very much, guys, for demonstrating those flies. Really appreciate it. I've got to go now, so thank you. Thanks, John, for organizing it.
Thank you.
Okay, see you, boys.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.
Don't forget, send me a report if you're not going to be on the virtual meeting so we can tell everybody how successful you are at fishing.
Sounds good.
Okay.
See you at the meeting.
Right, bye.
So we're still under, the weather's getting better and people are going fishing more, but conversely, we're still somewhat in lockdown, eh? So do you want to do this again next Saturday, Dave, or what do you think? Guys, what do you think?
Sure.
Sure.
Fairly well. How
think
many
that's
were
good.
on today, John? 12?
Yeah, I think 12 at the peak there. Well, Ron Esty decided later as well, so
Yeah.
I see him log.
As long as people seem interested and Dave's willing to do it.
My guess is that we're going to be on social distancing for another 2 to 3 weeks, and well, probably a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to take a while. The curve is pretty flat now, but we're going to want to have a little hiatus where there's no new cases before they start loosening up. Because
Well,
if there's still the odd case out there, then it becomes a lot more trouble tracking. And I even though they're testing, I don't think they're testing enough yet to be able to track where the new cases are coming from or where they might go. I think we're going to be on this social distancing thing. We won't be having any large meetings for a month or more.
Yeah, I think that will be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading about the aircraft carriers where they've tested everybody on board and they're getting 15% have the disease. Although of them, 88% of the 15% are asymptomatic, no symptoms. So, and to be fair, on an aircraft carrier, most people are younger. So basically they just got it and it was no big deal. But,
It's interesting that that captain of the American carrier might get his job back.
yeah, so there's 4 aircraft carriers that have got it now and a French one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're in close quarters and all it takes is one and then everybody has it.
Yeah.
It's obviously a very
Interesting.
contagious virus.
Yeah, interesting that 15% though.
And they say once you have it, you can get it again.
Mm.
That's
Well, but they
Oh.
don't know for sure if they never really got over it and it comes back and they still don't know things like that.
Yeah, there's my microbiologist wife has been keeping me up to date on all this stuff, and the concern, there's a couple of concerns. One is if you are immune, if you've had it and recovered, And if you are, how long that immunity may or may not last. They don't know yet, and that's going to be quite concerning if it doesn't last. You basically then we're hooped till we get a vaccine. But
I
some
don't
of
think
these,
you're ever going to get rid of this.
yeah, some of these reinfections, I'm guessing are the fact that it takes quite a while to shake the virus, and it might be that you physically recovered, but you may still be shedding virus. So it looks like you're cured or you've recovered, but you may still be shedding virus, and then you test positive, what looks like test positive for a second time. If it's a reinfection because you've lost your immunity, that could be really concerning. But there's no real good evidence that that's the case yet. We'll see, I guess.
Okay.
We're in this all. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's 10:11, and
Ready?
I've got to go, guys. I'm afraid, but I can leave you on here. I think so.
Okay.
I'm good.
Anyways, you'll have
Take
to
care,
try
guys.
more
Okay.
flies next week, Dave.
I don't know. Give me suggestions. Send me suggestions. Send John suggestions.
No.
Otherwise, I might something stupid like a clink hammer.
Yeah.
Okay, doke.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, bye, guys.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, guys. It was nice chatting.